Martinsville is a race that saw a lot of dirty moves, and although one of them was labeled as a brave one by Chastain, with full throttle on the wall and gaining 5 positions, there were some other moves that just cannot be accepted in the sport. One of them was made by Ty Gibbs, and rest assured that the whole NASCAR community wasn't happy with how he was able to get away with what he did. Kyle Petty, for one, isn't happy with how things happened during the Martinsville race, and he had a lot to say about this incident. During the last race in Martinsville, Ty Gibbs dumped his Joe Gibbs racing teammate, Brandon Jones, for the win. Petty saw this move as a bizarre and truly disrespectful one, given the fact that the driver is no one else but your teammate. Ty, who is just 20 years old, hasn't been quite popular and famous for fair racing in NASCAR circles, and this doesn't help him at all. Gibbs, Jones, and Noah Gragson were the top cars at Martinsville, and all three were running up front near the end of the race. During the final overtime restart, Jones, who started in the second row on the inside behind Gibbs, got a strong launch and made his way inside the number 54, where he then received a push from Sheldon Creed to surge out in front. The number 19 car took the white flag with Gibbs right behind him. Just a couple of moments later, Gibbs drove hard into the rear of Jones and sent his teammate up the track into the wall. Then the number 54 passed and cruised to victory. Seconds after his celebratory burnout, Gibbs exited his car to a chorus of boos where he stood on the door and raised his hands as if welcoming the negative reaction from the crowd. This is something that cannot be accepted in NASCAR, and the fact that Gibbs did this to a teammate just goes to show what kind of driver he is. At just 20 years of age, emotions can run high, and when you are fighting for wins, you think that everything is legal and allowed. But that is not the case, and the first guy you have to respect in these situations is your teammate. Kyle Petty called Gibbs an entitled driver who made a punk move, as he joined the list of the NASCAR world that finds it hard to believe what Ty did. During the latest episode of the Backseat Drivers podcast, the NBC analyst talked about the incident and whether the move would have an impact on the other drivers in the garage. I don't believe it changes a lot in the garage. I think it changes the fans' perception of who Ty Gibbs is. I think Ty Gibbs has proven now to everyone that he is arrogant, entitled, and thinks he can just go in and take things when they're not his and do it the wrong way. And that's what I don't like about it as much. We've seen people move people 1,000 times. He didn't move this guy. He wrecked him in the middle of the straightaway. When you see it, it's before they ever get to the corner. He's backing it, and then he gets out and raises his hands. It's a punk move. The former NASCAR driver has really gone ballistic with his rants, as Bubba Wallace was his previous victim prior to Ty Gibbs. But who could blame Petty? Whatever he is doing, it's for the right reasons, and you cannot blame him for taking the right side of things. With this embarrassing move, Ty Gibbs was able to make it to the championship 4, and although he sacrificed his race, he made another driver sacrifice his race and play the role of the good teammate. Kyle Larson, the guy who has been involved with Bubba Wallace's crash and has been crashed into for all the wrong reasons, had to play the role of a good Samaritan and help his teammate. But drivers are competitive by nature, and the fact that Gibbs kicked out his teammate Jones and kicked him out of the playoffs is something that doesn't sit right with the NASCAR community. Gibbs can reasonably argue he has responsibilities to his sponsors, although he already clinched his playoff berth earlier in the race. Jones spoke about this incident, saying that he and Gibbs were friends, but he lost all respect for the 20-year-old driver after what he did, adding, "Me and Ty have always been friends, but we lost all respect today. I know a lot of guys have. I'm looking forward to getting first to Phoenix and trying to win that race, but then transitioning over to JRM next year. I'm going to have a good time over there." Ty's grandfather, Joe Gibbs, who is also the owner of the team, spoke about the consequences that his grandson needs to face after his actions, adding that he and his family are currently working with him in order to help him overcome these consequences. "We want to go about this the right way, and we are walking. I am and our family is with Ty as he walks through all of this. When tough things happen, and certainly nobody wanted that to happen, I said, now there are consequences, and so we're trying to walk through those with him. I was also there, and so I think a lot about that too. There are things that I could have done a better job of." According to Joe, he could have handled the whole situation better had he been in his grandson's shoes. Which only goes to show that Ty does indeed think that everything is legal in NASCAR just because your granddad owns a racing team. I feel like I could have handled it better. I think that's it. All of us certainly wish that it had never happened. We think the world of Brandon and his dad, JR, so we're just kind of committed to, at this point, going through all of this and trying to do it the right way. A tweet that has been sent out on Twitter by Denny Hamlin went viral, as he wished that it was JD Gibbs that would have raced instead of his son. According to him, JD has been a much better driver, and he called the shots at JGR when he was alive. Many have argued that the organization glued much better with each other when JD was responsible for things unwinding in JGR, something that we are far from seeing now. However, Joe Gibbs admits that it's much harder to deal with the consequences of a driver on your team when that particular driver is your grandson. When talking about this matter, Joe said, "I think everybody out there who's got kids and grandkids knows the feelings. So that's all part of it. Sometimes that's not easy to kind of walk through all that, but I think it's just something that we have to do, as a family and as a race team family. Sometimes the question is different because it is your grandson. I've watched Ty for 20 years. We know every single thing about him. I know what kind of kid he is. As a family, we just want to have what's best for him, and we want to help him in every way. We're going to stay really close to him and just walk with him through this." Well, nevertheless, Ty has been truly disrespectful towards his teammate. And that is something that NASCAR shouldn't tolerate at all. No matter if your granddad owns a team, your actions should be dealt with properly. And NASCAR isn't a family heritage that is going to be left over to you from your grandparents. That is why Ty needs to be punished properly for his actions, and that is something that a championship contender like him shouldn't have in his veins if he wants to have a long and fruitful career in NASCAR. It goes without saying that being an entitled driver like Ty opens up more doors for you than other drivers, but there is a fine line between being aggressive and being arrogant. It seems like Ty has shown us multiple times throughout this season that he is more of the latter than the former. And there needs to be a massive change in his behavior if he wants to be a respected individual on the grid. That is why Petty has called for a penalty for Ty, as his actions have hurt the championship hopes of the other drivers, and they haven't been done inadvertently. Although you have sponsors you need to take care of, that's far from what NASCAR currently needs. And that is something that needs to be penalized correctly so that it won't happen again in the future. With that being said, what do you think about Petty's comments about Ty and Joe Gibbs racing? Do you think that they are legit ones, and do you think that Ty deserves a harsh penalty for his actions? Let us know in the comments below.